Tonight, we begin with a development that financial advisors, Social Security officials, and retirement experts had feared, warned about, and tried to prepare Americans for. A policy change that unfolded not over years, but in a matter of weeks. Weeks that caught millions of seniors completely off guard. Weeks that left financial planners scrambling to reach their clients. Weeks that could ultimately cost American retirees billions in lost benefits. What the Social Security Administration announced this month crossed a line that advocacy groups had hoped would never be crossed. And when that announcement came, seniors across the country did not have time to wait. They responded with confusion, with frustration, and with panic. Because what's coming in March 2026 isn't just another policy update, it's a deadline. A hard deadline. And if you're 62 or older, what you do in the next several months could determine whether you keep receiving your Social Security benefits or whether those checks simply stop coming. For nearly 2 years now, there had been signals, not official announcements, not press releases, just signals, that the Social Security Administration was preparing something unprecedented. The SSA has been underfunded, yes, but they have been methodical in their underfunding. Their policy changes have followed a certain pattern, a rhythm, almost a predictability. But what set off alarm bells in Washington and among financial advisors this quarter was that the pattern went silent. Insiders who monitor SSA policy know the indicators, the internal memos that leak to advocacy groups, the congressional testimony that hints at coming changes, the budget allocations that reveal priorities, the sudden hiring freezes or system upgrades. All of that went quiet. And whenever the Social Security Administration goes quiet, it means something is about to get loud. For months, retirement specialists had been telling clients to expect some kind of verification requirement. The government has been cracking down on fraud, on outdated records, on what they call payment integrity. But nobody expected it to come like this. Nobody expected the deadline to be this soon. And nobody expected the consequences to be this severe. Early this month, the Social Security Administration released what they described as an updated beneficiary verification protocol, including requirements that had not been enforced in over 3 decades. These are the kinds of requirements that the SSA only implements when they are signaling something very specific, a crackdown on fraud, a modernization of their systems, or a fundamental shift in how benefits are administered. Financial analysts didn't know which category this fell into, or whether it fell into all 3 at once. But what they did know was that the SSA was changing its posture. And when a government agency shifts its administrative posture without extensive warning, even by a small measure, every American affected needs to pay attention. Here's what the new requirement actually demands. Every American currently receiving Social Security benefits or planning to claim benefits before March 2026 must complete an identity verification and records confirmation process through the SSA's new online portal. This isn't optional. This isn't a suggestion. This is mandatory. And if you fail to complete this verification, by March 31, 2026, your benefits will be suspended. Not reduced, not delayed, suspended. The warning issued by financial advocacy groups this week was not normal. It was not routine. It was not symbolic. It was urgent. Advisor after advisor, analyst after analyst, described the SSA's move as aggressive, poorly communicated, and perhaps most importantly, devastating for seniors who aren't tech-savvy. But bureaucratic requirements only work if citizens comply. And right now, millions of Americans have no idea this deadline even exists. In fact, the response from seniors who have learned about this requirement has been among the most panicked we've seen in the retirement planning community. Here's what we know. Within days of the announcement becoming public, SSA phone lines were overwhelmed. These weren't casual inquiries. These were desperate calls from seniors, Americans who depend on Social Security to pay rent, buy medication, and put food on the table. The SSA website crashed multiple times. Local Social Security offices reported lines stretching around the block, and financial advisors across the country started receiving frantic calls from clients who had never heard anything about this requirement. Tonight, multiple sources confirmed that the SSA's new verification process requires every beneficiary to complete several specific steps, including identity confirmation through their new online portal that had only recently been upgraded for what analysts believe was this exact purpose. The SSA implemented this system before most Americans even knew it existed. They require Step 1, online account creation or verification. They require Step 2, identity confirmation using government-issued documents. They require Step 3, banking information confirmation to ensure direct deposits continue. They require Step 4, a final acknowledgement that all information is current and accurate. In other words, the SSA is targeting outdated records system-wide, the database errors that have accumulated over decades, the addresses that were never updated, the banking information that still points to closed accounts. This is what made advocacy groups' warnings so urgent. The SSA's requirement wasn't just administrative, it was actionable. It represented the kind of policy that could cut off benefits to millions if left unaddressed. And seniors, understanding that fully, need to respond with urgency. Not recklessly, not in panic, but strategically. They shouldn't ignore the letters arriving in their mailboxes. They shouldn't assume this doesn't apply to them. They need to verify their accounts. They need to confirm their information. They need to act before the deadline. And here's where the story becomes even more troubling. Policy analysts now believe that the SSA's latest move was designed to test the compliance capacity of elderly Americans after years of reduced in-person services. The SSA wanted to see whether seniors would struggle with online verification, but instead, the opposite of what they hoped is happening. Seniors aren't quietly complying. They're flooding phone lines with calls that are so frequent, so overwhelming, that even SSA employees are struggling to keep up. You don't get the federal government's attention easily. But this month, American seniors did. Policy experts speaking with journalists under anonymity described the SSA's shift as administrative shock therapy, a way to force modernization of their beneficiary records. But seniors have proven this week that they remain both vigilant and vocal. Their calls to congressional offices were not only numerous, they were so insistent that multiple representatives have already demanded explanations from SSA leadership. That pressure matters because it shows the system is listening. It shows that seniors are not passive recipients. They are active participants in protecting their own benefits. As reports continued coming in throughout the week, we learned more about the scale of Americans affected. An estimated 67 million Americans currently receive Social Security benefits, and every single one must complete this verification. Approximately 10,000 Americans turn 62 every single day, all of whom will need to verify before claiming benefits. Advocacy organizations estimate that at least 15 million seniors lack reliable internet access, making online verification extraordinarily difficult. This wasn't just a policy update. This wasn't just a routine requirement. This was a fundamental shift. This was a modernization mandate, and modernization mandates are the one thing the SSA has struggled to implement fairly since the system was created. For every technological advance they have made, millions of seniors have been left behind by requirements that assume digital literacy. Remember, the SSA thought online systems would simplify everything. They thought seniors would adapt to digital processes naturally. They thought reducing in-person services would force modernization. But tonight, the exact opposite is happening. Phone lines are overwhelmed, not websites. Local offices are packed, not empty. and millions of seniors are more confused than ever, not less. The SSA underestimated the digital divide. They underestimated the complexity of their own verification process, and they underestimated how much American seniors depend on human assistance, not automated systems. What makes this moment so critical and so time-sensitive is that the SSA's latest requirement happened at a time when the agency is under extraordinary pressure. Congressional Republicans want spending cuts. Congressional Democrats want expanded benefits. Budget analysts want fraud reduction. And seniors want stability. The SSA is balancing these demands while operating with a workforce that has been reduced by over 10% in the last 5 years. And when agencies in that position make sudden mandates, they're not doing it from strength. They're doing it from pressure. They're doing it from desperation. They're doing it because they need to show Congress that they can modernize, even if that modernization creates chaos for the very people they're supposed to serve. The SSA's official statement, now circulating on their website and through official channels, was designed to signal that the administration is not willing to allow benefit fraud to continue unchecked. Officials said plainly that failure to verify is inconsistent with continued benefit eligibility. That is bureaucratic language for no verification, no check. You don't usually hear that tone from the Social Security Administration unless something serious is at stake. And what's at stake is your monthly income, your financial stability, your ability to pay for housing, healthcare, and basic necessities. Meanwhile, AARP's leadership addressed members in a direct, urgent message this week. They said, "This deadline is real and the consequences are severe." They said, "We are fighting for extensions, but we cannot guarantee them." And they said, "Every member needs to verify their information as soon as possible. Do not wait until 2026. These are not rhetorical flourishes. These are statements from an organization that understands just how high the stakes have become. Here's what makes the situation even more concerning. The SSA's verification requirement wasn't isolated. Along with the primary deadline, Medicare has also announced verification requirements affecting coverage continuity. The IRS has implemented new identity verification for tax refunds affecting seniors. State pension systems have begun similar modernization mandates targeting retirees. All of this happened within the same 12-month period. When multiple government agencies move simultaneously, it means something larger is underway. A coordinated push toward digital verification across all benefit systems. And seniors who struggle with one system will likely struggle with all of them. Policy analysts are now considering several possibilities. One is that the SSA is preparing for a complete transition to digital-only services within 5 years. Another is that the SSA is attempting to identify outdated records that have been distributing benefits incorrectly for decades. A third possibility, the one worrying advocates the most, is that the SSA is attempting to reduce the beneficiary rolls through administrative attrition. But today, informed seniors can take that card off the table. They shouldn't wait for extension announcements. They shouldn't assume someone else will handle this. They shouldn't trust that the deadline will move. They need to verify now. What we're watching now is a test of administrative capacity. The SSA wants to see how many Americans can successfully navigate online verification. Seniors want to show they can adapt without losing benefits. Advocacy groups want to prevent mass benefit suspensions. And Congress wants to prevent a political catastrophe before the 2026 midterms. Tonight, we've heard from policy experts who are now monitoring SSA implementation closely. They say the verification portal is functional but confusing. They say phone wait times are averaging over 2 hours. And they say the SSA's decision to implement this requirement with limited notice is likely part of a broader modernization strategy intended to reduce long-term administrative costs. But seniors are not accepting this quietly. In fact, seniors are organizing more effectively than the SSA anticipated. Their response this week, vocal, visible, and unrelenting, sent a message to the SSA that Americans will not be quietly removed from benefit rolls, and it sent a message to Congress that constituent pressure on this issue will be intense. As the months go on, we expect more details to emerge about what exactly the SSA hopes to achieve with this unprecedented requirement. But what we do know is that early action is essential. It protects your benefits. It prevents last-minute panic. And it gives you time to resolve any issues before the deadline. What happens next will depend on what seniors do in the next several months. If they verify early, this deadline will be remembered as a manageable inconvenience. If they wait too long, the SSA has already shown they are prepared to suspend benefits without exception. They have shown they are ready to enforce. And tonight, for the first time in decades, the Social Security Administration appears to be unyielding. Washington is watching. Too carefully. And when Congress is watching, it means the political stakes are enormous. It means the SSA is choosing their next steps carefully. Because tonight, American seniors are learning something they should have learned long ago. Your benefits are not guaranteed. Your verification is your responsibility, and your deadline is non-negotiable. This story is far from over. But tonight, one thing is clear. March 2026 is coming. The SSA is not bluffing, and every American 62 and older needs to act now, before it's too late. And we will be here, watching every detail as this deadline approaches.